Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chairman Chu. I changed your name once. Is this now a pattern every single night? Have we got a new name coming, have we?
We just got to keep
Sure.
keep people on their toes.
Sure, keep people on their toes. Now, look, whānau, our regular introductions and all that kind of stuff will have to wait for a while. We're lucky enough to have broken into one of our MP's evenings. Dr. Ayesha Verrall, Labour Party spokesperson on health, joins us live. Ayesha, thanks for joining us so much.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So we've got you for a tight window. So we'll do all those niceties with our whānau later, and we'll just get into a conversation with you now, if that's okay. We've obviously got you on today because we want to talk a little bit about the whole conversation around the new Health New Zealand Czar, the sacking of the board, and what the national-led government is telling us versus, well, I guess, is it true? I was going to say versus the truth. I should hold a little bit of my opinion back. I would like to know from you, please. We're being told by this government that this is the biggest spend there's ever been in health in New Zealand. And watching Breakfast this morning with Mr. Luxon, and we're going to play this clip later on, he says very clearly, as an answer to being challenged, the question he got asked is this a case of overspending or underfunding? And his response is, there's never been more money spent in the health system as there is by us today. So his response is it's not being underfunded. He never actually answered the question. He said we're giving more than there's ever been given. Other aspects like the CTU seem to be coming out saying that is technically true, but because of inflation, that more money is buying less. I just want to throw you the ball. If you want to speak for the next 12 minutes on that, you're more than welcome, and get your thoughts around what we're seeing and what the truth is in between all of what we're seeing.
Yeah, thanks very much. And it's been just over 24 hours since the government launched a political attack on the Labour Party, the Health New Zealand board, the health reforms, and started spinning all these, well, let's call them lies, because that's what they are. So every year we have to spend more on our healthcare because of inflation and because of population growth. That's been really big in the last year due to migration. We have to spend more for our health system to be able to deliver the same service. So, of course, every health budget should be bigger than the one before. That's not in and of itself an achievement. And one of the things we tried to set up when we did the health reforms was sustainable funding of the health system. So the principle that for the health system to be able to plan, to be able to not lurch from one funding difficulty to the next, it should have a funding track that accounted for its growing cost pressures, inflation, and population growth. So we agreed that. We published the information for it before the election in pre-fu, so that all parties could plan for what they needed for the health system to go. The National Party funded what was in that estimate, what was in pre-fu, but we know their budget was really tight because they also made those ridiculous tax promises. And then when they were advised by health officials after the election that inflation and migration, their costs were higher than what they thought pre-election, the national government didn't adjust that funding to keep up with inflation, with the cost pressures that Health New Zealand has. So in real terms, every New Zealander has a health funding cut, and the CTU has calculated that it's 4% less is being spent on every New Zealander once you account for the increase in costs with the budget that's just been.
Let me read this from the CTU. This was a press release they put out around the budget. Nominally per capita operational expenditure on health fell by 1.3%, and real per capita expenditure, i.e. adjusted for inflation, fell by 4.5% on current population projections. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So So how did you guys mess up so badly to ruin their numbers? Because it seems to be all your fault, Ayesha. Apparently, the blowout from you has ruined their calculators, and we're trying to figure out why you did that to National.
It is a recurring theme that they fail to take responsibility for their own poor choices, their prioritisation of landlord tax cuts and blame all of that on basically anyone but them. But the responsibility is squarely at their door, and they've tried to fudge the picture also by saying that the reforms bake the problem in, but the reforms were designed to create sustainable funding. And the other thing is, in the cabinet paper that accompanied this decision to appoint the commissioner, they also revealed that it all came out in the February accounts for Te Whatu. So how on earth you can impact that from the previous financial year is beyond me. And they blame it on costs going back to 2018, which is ridiculous.
It's the same when they made that strange argument about fiscal cliffs, isn't it? When they said fiscal cliffs, what they were saying is, well, the funding has been programmed out till the halfway through this year, and then it needs to be reprogrammed. For some reason, they sold to the public, and credit where credit's due, they managed to, that the previous government didn't fund enough for the first term of the new government, when who would ever do that? You fund to the end of your term and a bit more, and then it's up to them to refund. That's sort of the same thing, isn't it?
As a political tactic, it's exactly the same. It's blaming the other government, not taking responsibility for their own decisions. But there's also more to it, I think, in this particular situation. They didn't just blame us, they blamed a board of talented people who, whatever you... who have come from a range of diverse backgrounds, who put themselves forward to act in public service for New Zealand and take on a really difficult task of running our health system. They blame them as well, which I think is particularly despicable. And then they've also made cast blame at management, who of course are public servants and can't defend themselves. So all around, I think it's pretty petty, small-minded managerialism from Chris Luxon's government.
Chairman Chu, you want to jump in?
Should we draw any particular angles in the fact that their chairman has been a very strong proponent of private healthcare in the past?
Yeah, look, I guess on principle, where I'd start with that is this is the government's responsibility. I hold Shane Reti responsible for everything Lester Levy does in this role. I think you could, I notice some commentators were blaming the Ministry of Health today. The government's trying to cast aspersions about the board. I don't really want to play the man with Lester Levy. It's what he does in his role that I think is really important. So running public health services into the ground in order to justify privatisation, we can't have that. However, I also want to be real with you guys. Our health system is incredibly privatised. General practices, many of those are private providers. They're not all for-profit, but they are private. Laboratories, hugely privatised. Radiology services, private. Aged care, private including charities. So we really have the hospitals and specialist services are the most public part, are the remaining public part of our system.
He's also saying the right things. I mean, I saw a clip from a press conference he did where he was talking about waiting lists. Of course, we all want to get waiting lists down. But Ayesha, forgive us, and I'll throw Chewy under the bus with this as well. We struggle when we hear this government using the right words, like we're all equal, because it's the underlying thing they're doing with those words. So when I hear an appointment from the government, a czar, if you will, who's been put in place above and beyond the board, using words like waiting list, I'm like, that's the right words, but they often, this government, say the right words, and there's an underlining ugliness that comes with it.
Yeah, so the biggest thing in this announcement is they have used a manufactured crisis as a justification for a cost-cutting program. And I think that's what all the words are intended to cover up. And for well over a month now, I've been getting emails from people in the health sector saying, I can't get my colleague who's resigned or retired, their vacancy can't be filled. Our service is at a critical position. We were approved funding for more clinicians, and those positions aren't being filled. I've heard of people going on maternity leave, and they go on maternity leave and without any guarantee that their work will be done by a proper maternity leave cover. So that's what the real agenda here is with what's been said.
Here's something else that kind of scares me a bit, because we're being told by this government $130 a month is the blowout, quote unquote blowout. Now that says to me they need to cut back $130 million a month. Now, what's that going to look like with this 14 layers we get told about? And we'll find when we play the breakfast story later on, they can't identify what those 14 layers are, but they're telling us it's 14 layers. I'd like to know from you, especially what you're hearing from people at the coalface, what does losing an additional $130 million a month from the New Zealand health system look like, Ayesha?
Yeah, well, it will mean cuts to frontline services. There is no way it cannot. It's certainly the case that we could make back office savings and efficiencies in Health New Zealand. That's part of why we abolished 20 different DHBs, to make it more efficient. But there is absolutely no way that you can cut that amount of money and not impact services. Second thing is this frontline back office distinction is pretty arbitrary. I mean, I certainly worked in the health system last time National was in government, and we lost our booking clerks. You have to go find your own patient notes. All of those things distract you from your patients and being able to do the things you need to do. So I have no doubt that it will make the lives of clinicians and the care of patients more challenging in our health system.
I know a lot of people who work in the teaching profession, and just to give an example of the front office back room, most teachers that I know personally will say the two people you got to get on board most of all are the receptionist and the caretaker. Because the receptionist will sort out all that stuff behind the scenes that you haven't got time for, and the caretaker will come and clean up the vomit when the kid does it in the classroom. And those two roles are backroom roles. So if they hypothetically were to go, which I'm not saying anyone's suggesting that, but those back office roles were to go, then teachers' jobs immediately become harder. It must be the same in the health system.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should be valuing the contribution that those unsung heroes of the health system make to the care of our patients. I guess the other way in which I'm worried about the right things being said about improving wait times and times in emergency department and so on is all of those targets feed into a very narrow view of the health system, like it's some sort of production line or sausage factory that we shuttle people through as fast as possible, not a place where we come with our incredibly diverse needs and ask for, our humanity to be cared for and our diseases to be treated with expertise. So I think it oversimplifies things into a really sort of neoliberal model where you can just extract costs out of it.
And then you add on top of that, when you're talking about diverse needs, ripping the Treaty of Waitangi requirements out of various things and getting rid of the Māori Health Authority and stuff, and you can just see, you don't have to be a genius to see the direction this government wants to take, not just the health system, but the country.
And the shame of that, there's a lot of ways in which that's wrong, but one of the things that really, we all saw through COVID, but I had a frontline view as Minister of Health, is much of the innovation in our system is in Māori and Pacific providers. They're arriving on the scene with better funding now, and they're thinking not how has the health system run for 100 years, but how can I solve problems for my whānau, my community in the most effective way. So they're often the best at outreach and the best at using technology in novel ways. So I feel that is a real missed opportunity for us. And the other thing the Māori Health Authority, Te Aka Whaiora, was really great about was that shifting the curve towards prevention. They were all about that. And that's another opportunity that the health reforms really presented, that cost cutting will distract us from. Because when you're cost cutting, all you have money to focus on is that non-deferrable care, being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff.
Yeah. Hey, Ayesha, thanks so much for giving us some time this evening. I know we've cut into your evening work schedule. We really appreciate it, but we'll let you go and get back onto the real job while we keep, being clowns on the internet now. But thank you for your time. All the best, and hopefully we'll talk again super soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Ayesha.
Cheers.
There you go, Chewy. It's just like the real world. We can hit our targets and get out at the right time.
So
Anything? I mean, I know I kind of dominated that, Chewy, but we had that timetable to hit. You can take over, sir. What else we want to talk about?
My initial thoughts when I saw these cuts come through is, you remember a few weeks back we were talking about whether there was a hiring freeze of new nurses.
Yeah.
Yes, there was. No, there wasn't. Blah, blah, blah. Run away from the cameras. Well, I guess that's confirmed now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess if there's any sort of pay negotiations with junior doctors and nurses, well, they've got their answer, right?
Mm.
They won't get them.
Yep. I mean,
so I fear that this whole thing is a tipping point, is a cascading problem now. I saw a story today from RNZ. They put in an official information request to find out how many hospital departments were safely staffed.
Yeah.
And there wasn't someone there to answer that request in time. Like, that's the thing. They won't know. Is their information not known, or just there's no one in the office to actually fit part of what we've set up for our systems of reporters and the public being able to officially ask for this information and have it provided? I think that's quite scary. I think here for the construction of the new Dunedin Hospital, what's that going to mean for that? National was more than happy to rake Labour over the coals for any sort of cost-saving measures with that, saying that they were stiffing the people of the lower half of the South Island. But now that they've solved that problem, that they weren't at the government at that point, then they can swing an axe at that quite happily. So this is really, really concerning.
I think it's interesting as well. I'm actually looking for something I saw. If you guys have seen Last Week Tonight, this week is his first week back, and obviously there's a lot to talk about. But I've talked before about the Bowling for Columbine documentary, when Michael Moore walked through South Central Los Angeles to the place where Rodney King was beaten, and it was tree-lined and it was flowery, and they were having a conversation about the truth is crime's going down, but what was happening in the media is the coverage of crime or coverage of murders had gone up by 600%. So there was this narrative that crime was increasing. And Last Week Tonight, this week, does a really, really good job. I don't know if I've quite got the right, but I'm not going to play it because I will get kicked off YouTube. But they talk about migrant crime, and migrant crime, all crimes going down. I'm just trying to find the thing while we're talking.
Well, you're finding a nice little sort of piece of that thing of crime in the US is going down, is they've actually linked that to something, and that was removing lead from petrol.
Oh, wow.
Because the amount of lead pollution in the air has obvious effects on people's brains, and one of them was cognitive function and empathy. And so they reckon that that sort of level of criminality and violence went down in correlation with the removal of lead from petrol. I just thought that was interesting.
They showed a graph, right? So you can see the stats in front of you, which is the serious crime in America. And they showed a graph, and it had, like January, migrant crime was mentioned, 80 times on Fox News. In February, it was 120 times. Then in March, it was like 612 times. They'd pulled a trigger to start increasing the term migrant crime, and it went from being a concern to 28% of the people, or 20% of the people, to 28% of the people. It jumped up to the second most serious thing people are worrying about for the election. And of course, this is what the Republicans are running on, and there is none. They put it. I'm not going to bother looking for it now. You can go look at it yourself. You can actually. This is just. I'm just looking at this on YouTube. If you want to go and have a look up, just search Last Week Tonight on YouTube and put in this week, and you'll get the episode. Don't do it now though. Stop. Where are you going? Come back. Do it after.
Too engaged.
But the point being as well, you know, what Ayesha was just saying about, well, I shouldn't use the word narrative, but the narrative that's being painted at the moment about the health system, Health New Zealand, and that's what the fourth estate is all about, holding a government accountable, checking the government's words, going, hang on, what's the story? Yeah, of course, this is more money than they've ever spent before in the health system because it increases every year. Of course. So if your expenses are going up by 20% and you increase your budget by 10%, you've increased your budget, yeah, but you're not getting as much for your money. You're going backwards. And that's basically what they're saying is happening. And we will play this in a second. We had Mr. Luxon on breakfast this morning, and he was asked that question. He was asked about, you know, the blowout, and his response to the blowout being, no, it's not being underfunded, was we're spending more than ever before. At no point did he say it's operating better than ever before. His response was just, we're spending more than ever before. So he didn't say, is it being underfunded? His answer wasn't, no, it's not being underfunded. His response was, we're spending more than ever before. We'll get to that in a sec, but before we do that, let's just acknowledge some of the super chats that have come in. Nats, Health New Zealand Czar. Look, I started using the word czar last night. This is what we got to make it trend. It's got to be czar, right? Forget all this commissioner bullshit. It's got to be czar, right? So use that in your tweets and your texts on your Facebook pages. Health New Zealand Czar has lots and lots of historical investments in private health companies. Oh, look, I have to actually say, good on Ayesha Verrall, man. She's like, well, let's see. I'm not going to throw him under the bus just yet. Let's judge his actions. Fair. And has advocated for running health like a business. Yeah, I mean, fair, but let's keep a really close eye on that. But good on her. Citizen Gold, thank you for the super chat. Says, if possible, could we get a few words from Ayesha on the therapeutics? I apologise about that, Citizen, but as you would appreciate,
really tight time frame.
Yeah, really,
we had
really
her
tight
for.
time frame today. And Peter says, but you don't get it. Landlords are now respected. Yeah, that's the other thing with this government, and they will never be able to move away from the truth that they've made a choice to give $3 billion to landlords. So if they're $130 million short, that's what they're saying. Like, that's well less than $3 billion per annum. So if they hadn't have given it back, they made a choice. They chose landlords over funding a full and properly operating, as much as it can be, health system. Not, of course, saying that it was absolutely operating as good as it could be. Joey, we're going to go into the breakfast clips now with Luxon because it's the same topic. But before we do that, is there anything else you want to add in? Any more chats or anything you want to throw at?
I have two things to mention because we used the word czar and people went, is that correct? CZAR or TSAR? They are both interchangeable.
CZ. That's how I've been spelling it. CZAR.
Yeah. So they both work. They both mean exactly the same thing.
And thanks for joining your English lesson today, people. Next.
A slight tangent before we transition into a new phase of the show. Oh my God, that's what unleaded means. When I've got my petrol, I've never considered why it was called unleaded. I didn't know that they put lead in fuel. Here is my fun little history fact. Okay, the person responsible for coming up with the idea of adding lead to petrol is also the man that came up with, I think, CFCs and refrigerators and burned a hole in the ozone layer. Thanks, they reckon that one man's two terrible ideas have killed more people in the past 100 years than anything else. Wow. Just one dude.
It is funny when you have a revelation that was so obvious to everybody else, but not to you. My one was, 5 years after listening to him, I realized that Will.I.am spells William. I had no idea until I saw it written down that Will.I.am spells William. And just to correct myself, you probably weren't giving us an English lesson. You were probably giving us a Russian lesson, just technically. Yeah, so Will.I.am is William. I didn't think about it, didn't know it until I finally saw it written down somewhere and went, oh my gosh, William,
I had a very, very public moment like that with a musician. There is a band that I like called City and Colour. And it's a weird name for a band. And I went to see a live performance of City and Colour, and I was sitting with a whole bunch of people that I hadn't met before. And I was like, I verbalized that out loud, and then somebody went, "It's because his name is Dallas Green." And I went, "Oh, fuck, I knew that. Oh, I'm so dumb." But it rippled through the crowd that heard that conversation of everybody going, "Oh, that's why." So I wasn't alone.
I'm going to show you another one. This is not me. This is a friend of mine. A friend of mine that worked in I think I told the story once before. A friend of mine who worked in a setting where it was a religious setting. We'll just put it that way. And he was looking to connect with agents over the world. So he signed up to this group called Who Represents, right? Mm-hmm. And so you could go in there and you could contact who represents this person, who represents that person, who represents that person. He paid for it on the business. Well, it was a trust, on the trust credit card. He looked at what it read, and then he sent a message to his wife. And he said, "In case I die in a car crash on the way home, I just want you to know that I didn't just sign up to Whore Presents," because it's exactly the same words. So Who Represents, if you put all the letters together, spells Whore Presents. And so he just wanted to make sure his wife knew he wasn't getting some action on the side or something.
Do you know the best website to buy new pens for the office?
Yes, I do, but you can tell the people.
Yeah, it's a website called Pen Island. You can just type that in, or one word, into a browser. Thank me later. It's a great source of pens.
I still wonder if that was done on purpose. I mean, I'm assuming it was, but there is the possibility that was just a happy coincidence. You know what I mean? For people who aren't looking it up now and haven't got it, you should tell them what it is. Pen Island is also
penis land.
Yeah. Yeah, it must have been on purpose, because you wouldn't call yourself Pen Island. Very clever, though.
I love the fact that we've transitioned from the potential collapse of our health system to rude words.
Wow.
Rude words.
Gosh. Should we continue on our conversation around rude words, because we actually have something to talk about tonight, or should we go into Mr. Luxon?
Oh, that's too good of a segue to ignore.
Should we do it?
Yeah.
All right. So I've got a conversation for you, and me and Chewy talked about it beforehand, and there are some words in here that are going to offend some people. But the conversation I'm sort of wanting to have around it, it's not really a news item per se, is around, are we going backwards in the language that we're finding acceptable in society? I think there are going to be some offensive words to most, if not all, people in this. And if you are particularly sensitive to, words that are derogatory towards a particular community, especially some of the worst ones, go to the bathroom. We'll see you in 2 minutes. But here's our Deputy Prime Minister, Winston Peters, in the House today.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Could I ask the Minister, does two of the top three in this Parliament who have got Maori background, or the highest percentage of Maori and Pacifica in a cabinet, or the highest in percentage in the country in terms of Parliament, represent progress, or the kind of retard comment you just heard?
Point of order.
Point of order. The House is getting a little unruly. So
I wonder why.
Point of order.
Is it?
Debbie Nauru-Wapaka.
The history of the word retarded is bad enough to be hearing in this House. In fact, people have endured years of abuse because of that very name, but is unparliamentary for a minister of that seniority and age group to be saying that in the House. Please, within your powers, stop that type of language in this House.
I'm sure you wouldn't want me to rule on the basis of an ageist
shut
comment,
up.
But I would ask the Minister to withdraw the word used.
I withdraw the word use.
In the most get off my lawn granddad sounding way. Now, the thing is, I actually came across something else today. Now, I kind of said if your words are offensive to you, me and Chewy talked about this beforehand, but sometimes it's appropriate to hear the actual things being said, right? So I'll just be blunt. The N-word gets used in this clip, okay? Fair warning. It's only 40 seconds. If you can't do it, then turn off for 40 seconds, but this is what we're talking about. This is a story today that was about a boarding school student in Dunedin at a school called John McGlashan who has been suspended for allegedly using the N-word. Now, His father on this interview doesn't say the N-word. He says the N-word, and he says it very casually and very relaxed, which makes you think, gosh, he's incredibly comfortable with this word. Whereas Mr. what's his name again? The keeper of the crypt, Michael Laws, also drops the R word in the space of just one sentence. And I just thought, wow, like 3 times in one day, these things seem to be coming back.
All right. Certainly it was a very different school then. It was sort of, well, to be perfectly honest, was a bit retarded by comparison to what it is today. Now, your son is involved in what that gets him excluded from the school?
Well, we don't know the exact words that were said. The school's claiming our boy used the...
I actually don't want to play it.
Our boy and another boy both claim that no, that word was not used. But that seems to be the catalyst for the exclusion.
There you go. If you want to hear the word, I don't know, Joe. I just felt like I don't want to play it. I don't want to play it on the thing. I don't want to hear it on the thing.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah, the bit that I pulled down and went up, he said what the word was. And the thing is, he said it so casually and so comfortably. It was no like, look, I'm only saying this because I'm being, he didn't say the N-word. He said the N-word so comfortably and so nonchalantly. It's just, and I guess I don't want to, like jump on him or his kid. We don't know the full story. But, there's a certain kind of person in the world. We've talked about language before and about especially Māori place names being butchered, and people just don't choose to get it wrong. And like there's a couple of areas around in here. The Wakawaiti is a bit further north, and of course this guy calls it Wakawai. We're in Wakawai. Just refuses, anything, won't do it. N-word slipped out so very, very comfortably. He wasn't using it himself. He was repeating what his son had been accused of, to be fair, but it was said so comfortably. And if you want to check out how comfortably, it's go to YouTube and look up the Keeper of the Crypt and check on that conversation for yourself. But it did make me think, kind of 3 times in one day. I'm like, coincidence here. Are we seeing the decline of society in many ways? And look, we can say Trump went through, and now it's like the so anti woke brigade wants to come out. They want to be so far away from those liberal lefties that they're just going to actually find strength in using these terms and terminology that are deeply offensive to some, if not a majority. I think the N-word is deeply offensive to anyone, even if you're not the victim of it. But, the word that starts with R that they use, that may not be offensive to the hugest proportion of the population, but deeply offensive to some. And are they taking that as a badge of honor now? Like, I'll just show you how unwoke I am. I'll just say them. You know what I mean, Chewy? It's a thought, that's all.
Well, I mean, we had a story the other week where someone was quite happy to use the term spastic as well. So, yeah, I think there's an argument with this. I mean, this exclusion of the student from John McGlashan, I've read the story, and like when you said that you had the parent just busting out the N-word with not even a should I say it or shouldn't I, not even
no hesitation,
a reaction from Michael Laws about it either.
Yeah, definitely no reaction from Michael Laws.
Didn't even bother him. Never even slowed him down. Whereas I think the majority of people would have real hesitation saying it. And I think when it comes to what this kid is accused of saying and of doing, he's been excluded from quite a prestigious school.
Yeah,
for targeted bullying of a Māori student. And some of the things that he's been accused of are deliberately mispronouncing the word Māori, engaging in banter, but has denied using the N-word or calling this other student a bush Māori.
Just before you go on, I wonder if that banter is locker room banter. I wonder if you've heard that before.
It's all good jokes.
It's just locker room banter.
It's all jokes. It's all jokes.
Yeah.
This guy's taking it too seriously. He's too sensitive. All of this classic way of minimizing the effect that bullies have, and even minimizing the fact that some quite racist things have been said. Now, in swing the parents, Mr. Emerson said he believed their son had been made a sacrificial lamb.
Oh God, that's Christ-like
Mrs. Emerson
analogy,
said their son. Mrs. Emerson said that their son was not a racist, and he was just a kid that said some stupid things in class with a whole bunch of other kids. It doesn't really make him a racist.
And just for clarity, not that it matters, stepmother, stepson. Just to be accurate for the story. That's what
I'm just reading straight from the ODT
Yep.
here. But, you know, do they believe that the school has just pulled the trigger on excluding someone based on no evidence? Like, other students have heard him say it. The person that is making the accusation obviously heard him say it. And these parents are just rushing to the defense of their little angel who could do nothing wrong, up to the point of running immediately to the platform and busting out the N-word. I'm sorry, I don't believe you. I believe that your son is a sheltered little rural guy that thinks he can get away with this sort of stuff when he's put in a position with a whole bunch of other white kids that are going to back him up. It is classic bullying.
Yeah, the whole story is we don't know all the details. Like, I did listen to that interview on the Keeper of the Crypts show, and the parents were like, the boy didn't even complain. It was the boy's father who complained. So whatever. Yeah, just push away.
The boy that's being bullied is outnumbered.
Yeah,
and he's gone to tell his dad. Like, oh.
I like what Tane said. I've never thought about this. You know, sometimes when people use an analogy, but it's upside down. The one I always think of is, the rotten apple spoils the bunch. People use that as a way to say only one person in this group is bad. That's not what the analogy says. It says one bad person means you're all bad. The rotten apple spoils the bunch. It's not the rotten apple gets removed and everyone else is okay. And here's another one, actually, and Tane's just said it beautifully, because they said a sacrificial lamb, a lamb to the slaughter. Isn't the sacrificial lamb supposed to be the best one, not the crappiest? It's true. In all the religions, the one you sacrifice is the best of the best, not the worst of the worst. So I like it. So
what I mean is he's been sacrificed on the altar of woke.
Yeah.
Like, if this is how it played out, if he said it, look, all credit to John McGlashan for absolutely sending a message to every student at that school that you can't do that. Like, let alone the choice of the words used, of bullying at all. You know, when I went to school, bullies got away with absolute murder.
Yeah.
And we've certainly had a case, funnily enough, with my old principal when he moved to Otago Boys High School, of rampant bullying. And it was all washed away with, these are good kids, boys will be boys. It's all character building, all of this old bullshit. And if that's going on and you want to chuck racism in there, you did a bad job raising your son.
I watch that Discovery Channel series, The Deadliest Catch. I've watched every series of it. Love it. Hardest, men in the world, most dangerous job in the world. They've got mouths like sailors. They're just, because they are sailors. And one of the captains kicked one of the crabbers off his boat last week for calling one of the other crabbers the N-word. And I think if those guys, if the crabbers in The Deadliest Catch are going too far, then sorry, private school students, if that's what happened, how it happened, yeah, you can sit down. You can sit down, mate.
Point of order, Pat. Where did they kick him off the boat?
They had to wait to get back to port, but they put him downstairs. It didn't work anymore.
That's disappointing. Yeah. The ocean's right there.
Yeah, no. All right, there you go. There's our little tangent. They were just Pat's thoughts. We need a little theme. Can we use this theme? Oh, no. We got that theme for something else. Yeah, all right. We can't use that theme. We need a theme for Pat's thoughts. We need a theme for Pat's thoughts and one for Chewy's rants. So let's get back onto the story that we were sort of in the middle of before we tangented, before our tangential line went off. Mr. Luxon on breakfast this morning. Question from Jenny May, exactly as you've just heard from Ayesha Verrall. Overspending or underfunding?
outcomes for New Zealanders.
You're calling these changes as a result of an overspend. Or is this more of a case of underinvestment or underfunding?
No, what I want to say to everybody is, health today in New Zealand, we spend about $30 billion every...
So this is the answer where his response is, are you underfunding it? No, because we've never spent more. Okay, that doesn't mean it's not being underfunded. If I've got a mortgage and my mortgage is $1,000 a week, and last year I was paying $700 a week, and now I'm paying $800 a week, I've never paid more towards my mortgage, but we're still going backwards $200 a week. That's not an answer to is it underfunded, but it's the answer that he's going to give.
Say to everybody is, health today in New Zealand, we spend about $30 billion every year on healthcare. And in addition, in the budget, as we've talked before, we put in an extra $16.7 billion over the next 4 years. So we've got record amounts of money going into health. And I want to make sure that as I put taxpayers' money into healthcare, I'm actually putting it into a really high quality organisation that's going to deliver the outcomes that I'm expecting to get for that money.
Yeah, and that'll take time.
Well, that's why we've put a commissioner in, so they can move with great speed.
Yep.
Again, there's a lot of focus on speed. That doesn't also necessitate, doing the job well. Most of the times when we want a job done well, we don't move with huge amounts of speed. These guys are talking about, and every answer they give, not necessarily in this conversation, it's always about hitting budgets and doing it quickly. They very rarely talk about doing it properly, no matter how long it takes. And I mean, we were talking last night, Chewy, and I was listening back to a clip today because I was editing it, and you said something about the American election, that it'd be nice to have a nice boring, series of politicians in just to run the country. It's like, yeah, boring politicians will do things right, even if it takes a long amount of time. These guys are about moving fast and hitting budgets and slash and burn. So again, what he just said, a commissioner in place to move quickly. Why? Do it well. Measure twice, cut once. These guys aren't measuring at all, and they're cutting straight away, Chewy.
It's move fast and break things.
Yeah.
Which is a great analogy if you're talking about the corporate world and agile and all of that sort of stuff. It's less good when you're talking about people's healthcare.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it comes back to that whole thing of equal care. Everybody gets treated the same. That sort of thing. We know it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. You're spending a whole bunch of money, but what are we getting for the money? And the question that should go along with this, with his backhanded fucking comment about, I want to make sure it's going into a top organization, as if Health NZ is not a top organization. That Te Whāra Ora is this rickety shambles of bloated government spending, which it isn't. It just isn't.
Yeah.
Our population's expanding. If it was bloated, we'd have nurses standing around scratching their bums because they had nothing to do.
Yep.
The doctor's car park full of Bugattis. We don't have that. And if his answer is to run this down and privatize it, like I think they want to, because the health minister is involved in private healthcare. The guy that they've just appointed is a huge fan of private healthcare. And these guys have been reading the Tories' notes as they dismantled the NHS and made it an ineffective shell of what it once was. And these guys think that's a great idea.
Yes, indeed. All right, we'll keep going.
Yeah, and that'll take time.
Well, that's why we've put a commissioner in, so they can move with great speed.
Yep. So, in saying that, though, Health New Zealand was already taking measures to limit spending, right? Public hospitals were told to cut back at around about $105 million by July. That included roles not being filled. Is that not a sign of underfunding?
No, I disagree, Jenny May. Just so you're really clear, the funding is record levels. We've never had this amount of investment in health.
This is the talking point, right? PR agency has got them to say, just remind them how much we're spending. That's all you got to say. Remind them how much you're spending. Jenny May has another question. Yeah, answer big number.
May, just so you're really clear, the funding is record levels. We've never had this amount of investment in health in New Zealand.
And last year's funding was record levels, and the year before that was record levels, and next year is going to be record levels because it goes up every year.
ever. And we were able to do that by making savings across public services in the budget. The second thing I'd say to you is we've got a massive focus and a drive on recruiting frontline staff. And what this is about is saying, look, there's 2,500 extra managers that have been put into Health New Zealand. There is 14 layers of management between the patient and the CEO. If you're a frontline doctor or nurse, go talk to them and talk about the challenges that they've got dealing with management mush that sits above them. And so this is what this is about, is making sure that organisations set for...
I get a feeling that was brainstormed as well. Management mush. Mark this one, management mush. See how much you hear that this week.
Purpose. It's focused on the front line. It's focused on those outcomes. We now have 2,900 extra nurses in the healthcare system.
Oh, when did they go through the education sector, I wonder? I wonder who they graduated under, because there's an extra 2,900 this year. Wonder when do they start doing it with a free first year of education? I wonder when. I wonder if these guys will take credit for them.
Over the last year. A lot of that's come through in the last 6 months under our government. We've got more nurses in our system than we've ever had before. Yes, there's now more nurses needed in mental health, critical care in some of the regions, and that will continue.
No, that's it. We're cutting through it because that's the BS level. See, we have to come out every couple of minutes to get rid of the BS. Got to shake it out of the sides of your head.
Jesus.
That's fantastic. That it's like 2,900 extra nurses, many of which came through in the last 6 months. Yeah, but it's a 3-year course, numbnuts. When do you think they were studying? Not under you. You're taking credit for Labour's advancement of nurses. Good on you. All right, Chewie, you want to get in there? We've got a couple more to play.
No, let's push on.
Let's push on. The thing about the 14 layers is interesting. She actually asks them directly, and I've got that clip coming up shortly. Right now, though, we're going to have Jenny May talk about Rob Campbell. Rob Campbell, who they had on earlier. You can see how this is a very long clip. The first half of this clip down here is actually Jenny May talking to Rob Campbell. That's Rob Campbell there. And they replay a piece of the conversation to the Prime Minister that Rob Campbell say. Rob Campbell was formerly the Health New Zealand chair. And they were talking about, are costs the issue or not when it comes to the health system?
Former Health New Zealand chair, Rob Campbell, who joined us this morning. You'll know him. He was in charge between 2021 through to February 2023. Now, as I say, he spoke with us on breakfast this morning. He talked about costs not necessarily being the issue, right? That it's actually about a good health system. Just take a listen to what he told me this morning.
You can't get a good health system while you are walking backwards on tobacco control, while you're walking backwards on alcohol control, while you're walking backwards on speeds on roads, while you're underfunding the GP sector, which is so critical to our system. While all those things are happening, it doesn't matter what you do in the leadership of Te Whatu Ora. You won't achieve a better health system. They're in the wrong place.
He says they're in the wrong place in terms of the focus. Is he right?
I disagree with him completely.
Funny that. And what about the dismissive laugh? That was in there as well. It's funny. He disagrees completely. The guy who ran the area that you're talking about for 3 years, the guy who had to go through a previous government and into your government about how it should be run, he's completely wrong. And the guy who sold deodorant for several years is the one who's correct.
Focus. Is he right?
I disagree with him completely. What we're doing as a government is being very clear about healthcare. We're putting more money than we've ever had into it before. We're recruiting more frontline staff than we've ever had before.
And what we're alluding to is the rollback on all of these policies. I mean, you'll actually have more people actually turning up at hospitals that'll need greater healthcare.
Yeah.
I disagree completely, Jenny May.
That's a good disagree. I'm glad he disagreed with that, because Jenny May's put a measurable thing out there. There will be more people turning up to hospitals. I disagree, Jenny. I disagree. He's making a prediction. He's saying fewer people turning up to hospitals. We can mark this date. That's a measurable comment he's made. One of several he's only made in this whole time.
Greater healthcare.
I disagree completely, Jenny May. I disagree completely, and I appreciate, he was part of a previous administration and had a responsibility as chair of the Health New Zealand board. And I've agreed with some of the things actually that Rob has
Labor bad,
which is, I think as a government we need to give maximum clarity to that board. In this case, now a commissioner. The commissioner will then deal with the organisation and obviously the management of the organisation as well. But it's important. We have to deliver improved health outcomes for all New Zealanders, and that's what this is about. We've put the money in. I want to make sure that the money's going into a very good organisation that's well managed, that's expertly managed to get those improved outcomes.
Clip number 2, Chewy. Yours, sir.
He's doing that by sacking a board and demanding that they make $1.4 billion worth of savings.
Yeah.
And just basically making the assumption that the whole health sector has so much fat in it that they can just get rid of management mush and this perception that there are too many managers somehow in a hospital. That's going to work. And I'm sorry, if you're a supporter of National, you probably wandered into the wrong podcast. But if you are...
welcome. Haere mai. Welcome. Haere mai means welcome. Means you might know that if you're a... Haere mai, come.
If you are a supporter of National, what you need to do is realise that he is taking you for a fool.
Yeah.
He is banking on the fact that you are too simple to look at something like a hospital and a whole nationwide organisation that delivers socialised health to its citizens can just do it on a handful of managers. And that there's so many managers getting such huge wages that they can make $1.4 billion worth of cuts and not touch the front line, and you're going to get seen by a doctor quicker. Yeah, and there's not going to be people getting double bunked or put on gurneys in the hallways, and you're not going to have nurses burning out or junior doctors burning out and leaving the country. That it's all going to come out of somebody sitting in a desk in an office somewhere in the middle of the hospital.
Or ambulances sitting in the car park so they don't have to start the time on how long people are waiting for with patients inside, or on and on and on and on and on and on and on.
That is laughable. It is laughable that he expects people to believe this. Some people will.
Well, it's not that even that they actually this is the thing. It's not that even what he's saying will be untrue, because they will just wipe out the whole back room area, right? The back office, because he's not saying we'll get rid of the back office and it won't impact the front line. So they'll get that they could be accurate and do what they've said by knocking out the back office, and it could make it a whole lot worse. Still doing what they said they'd do. We told you we would, and you put us in. We've got a mandate. I just think that the inflection from what he's saying is, and everything will be operating better. The example I gave to Ayesha Verrall about, the receptionist and the caretaker in every school are the most valuable people, because they're the ones the teachers rely on the most to do their stuff outside of class time and to clean up when the kids vomit in the classroom. And they're backroom people, and they're probably the most valuable people in a school.
I mean, anybody that's worked in an organisation knows that the office lady is the thing that holds the whole fucking thing together and makes sure that everybody gets paid. Yeah. That is a back roll position.
Yeah.
It's the person that gets the invoices paid. And Luxon should know that if he worked in business. But somehow I don't think that Luxon's someone that shares a break room with the office lady and payroll.
I read somewhere that he this is what I've read. I'm not saying it's accurate. It'd be interesting to find out, or someone can put in the chat the link if it is, that he fired 20,000 people from Unilever when he was there. They let go of a whole bunch of people. That was the response to making it more. Because of course, the way you make something more profitable is you either do things better, you build a better widget, you become better, or you just get rid of a whole heap of your overheads. And salaries are always the biggest overhead to make that profit margin bigger.
You might be shocked about this, Pat, but that's also what happened when he was at Air New Zealand. Like, all he had to do was basically just hold fast, and it would have kept on going. Air New Zealand was award-winning. But he cut costs because it delivers value to shareholders. And that's the thing that gets him his bonus. They were never people. They were units that took away from profit.
Yeah. All right. Now, Sarah's jumped ahead of the next little short clip. It's only 90 seconds, but the 14 layers doesn't get delved into very deeply here. But Jenny May makes it clear that that they've been trying to find out from anyone, the health minister, whoever it is, what the hell these 14 layers are. And nobody will give them any answers. So TVNZ can't find out what they are. The Office of the Health Minister hasn't told them what they are. So my bullshit nerve's going off just a little bit between me and you. Unless when they talk about 14 layers, what they're talking about is person, layer 1, gets in their Uber, layer 2, goes through the front door and gets a coffee. So the person in the cafe is layer 3. Then, like, what are they? Tell us what they are. Let's see what these guys talk about.
I do want to move on, but I just do want to make the point that we asked the Minister's Office for the chart of those 14 levels. They said it would take longer than up to this interview to gather that kind of information, which, seems...
So hang on. So there's 14 layers, which means you've worked out what the 14 layers are, but you say that you are needing time to get together what the 14 layers are to pass them on to TVNZ. You've already identify them because there's 14. They should be in a list in an email from Shane to Christopher. Here's the 14 layers. I smell bullshit, Joey. I smell bullshit.
They said it would take longer than up to this interview to gather that kind of information, which, seems a bit odd, given that this was something that you pointed to yesterday. You wanted those 14 levels reduced down to 6, and given the urgency of these reforms. But I guess for people watching this interview this morning, Prime Minister, when will the frontline services, therefore, when will people who are seeking health care see a difference with the changes that you have made to the health care that they will get? What is the timeline?
Yep, metric, please.
Well, the first thing, Jenny May, as we talked about in opposition, is it's about workforce. We're recruiting more frontline doctors and nurses than we have in a long time. We've got a record number of nurses in the system. The second thing's been about the funding. We've put a record number of funding in. There's $30 billion.
But we're looking for a date. When's this going to kick in and benefit us?
Going in, plus the new cancer drugs that we've put in place with Pharmac as well. So there's huge investment going in, and we've put targets in place, 5 clear health outcome targets that New Zealanders care about. Now what we're doing is making sure the organisation can deliver against all of that, and that we actually start to see those improved outcomes. That's why we've put a commissioner in place for 12 months so they can move with great speed and really accelerate the decision making. It needs a big turnaround. It needs to get sorted, and that's what the commissioner will do.
But
no answer.
What?
No answer.
Give Jenny May an air horn. Or just no. We're 3 sentences in. No, nothing. Start again. Yeah. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Did not answer the question. Straight to jail. I know politicians have a reputation for this. But what we saw yesterday with the laughably named climate minister, and what we're seeing here with Luxon, is just such egregious levels of taking the piss and talking for as long as possible without actually answering the question.
Yeah, no question answered.
It's beyond a joke.
Yeah.
Call them on it. Where's the answer? Is that an answer, Mr. Luxon? Would you like to hear the question again?
When are we going to see it? Would
you like to phone a friend? Would you like to get one of the 7 layers of social media management to answer the question for you? Is that it? Because they can. We're paying for them as well. So why shouldn't they be involved? Get them in. They can stand behind you like a fucking hype squad.
Back office. Social media people are back office, wouldn't you say? They're not frontline. Back office.
Yeah.
Should be gone, one would think. Okay, a few messages that have been coming in thick and fast. Let's start up with Tawhiri. Thank you for your super chat. Health NZ Czar has lots and lots and lots of historical investments in private health companies. He has advocated for running health like a business. I think we read that out before, didn't we? But there you go. You got a couple.
It's repeating.
It was so good we gave it to you twice. Chewy's name, says Tawhiri, should be Che Guevara.
I have written that down. That's very good. Thank you.
Che Guevara. Mr. Arvids, thank you for the super chat. Says Luxon is management mush. You ever wonder if there's a brain in that dome? David says those two guys from the film Office Space need to ask Luxon, what would you say you do here? Because
he doesn't have a portfolio.
Needs an answer. Very good.
He doesn't have an area of responsibility or a portfolio that he's responsible for. He doesn't have time to talk to the press. So, valid question.
They had the same name, didn't they?
What are you doing?
Those two consultants had the same name. They were like the Darrells
Bob
or
and
something.
Bob.
Oh, the Bobs.
Bob
the
and
Bobs. Yeah, it's a great movie, that. Mr. Arvids again says, now you're remembering this, look up the stats. Now you're remembering this, look up the stats. Candid Cat, thank you for the super chat. Quick rant. I'm tired of politicians using anecdotes when asked for evidence. Correct.
Yes.
Evidence is a body of facts and indicates, and they are being dishonest, deceptive, or scientifically illiterate. All three are they being?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we always say here, the thing about anecdotes is anecdotes may or may not represent the data, because an anecdote is a personal story. The thing about data, though, data is cold and calculated and is not good for making people feel good on the other side of the camera. Anecdotes are this poor person who ABC tugs at the heartstrings. Data, raw data, is cold and calculating, but that's what we need to use, unfortunately. That's how we know we have a systemic society issue, or it's just that dude across the road's got an issue.
Yeah, Christopher Luxon uses an anecdote like once a week he opens the gates to his mansion and speaks to a little boy that walks past. You there, what is your experience of the real world? Not too close, you're disgusting. But I'll use that anecdote when I talk to Radio and NZ to make me look like a real person.
Mr. Management Mush speaks mush. Any other chats you want to get to there, Chill? We're going to go have a chat about Darleen Tana to wrap up the show, but is there anything else you want to get in there?
No, not right now.
Okay, then.
I was just looking at what we have left to start.
Do we need a little bit of that? Oh, stretchy.
Oh, right for the stretch.
Stretchy.
There you go. Big stretch.
You all right, mate?
Big stretch.
Lie down. You can lie down. Down.
You made me look up.
Thank you. There you go. Just a little
foldy pause.
What you have when you have like sorbet between the meal, a palate cleanser. Little palate cleanser. Okay, Darleen Tana, with the most hardest, was one of the worst jobs in politics. See that seat up there, Chewy, right in the back?
It's so sad.
It's even one seat.
Sad.
It's even right one seat. It is literally the naughty step. It is literally up in the naughty seat. You know, that's where the kid goes when they've been in a bit of trouble in class. They go to the very back, doesn't have a friend on the left or the right, has to sit by themselves. Darleen Tana's seat. Here we go.
Struggling to find their new seat. It's way up the back there in political Siberia, the loneliest place in Parliament. But not for Darleen Tana.
Yeah, I was going to actually, that was a bit of a, here we go.
Do you, like all bad kids at the back of the class, do you think she's carving that cool S into her desk?
The Superman S, whatever it is.
Yeah, I bloody would.
I also wonder, just from looking at the imagery here, if she's been kept in at morning tea as well. Because all the other kids, they've all left. They're gone out to have their Sammies, their Marmite and chip sandwiches, and she's been forced to stay in. So I wonder if a part of being an independent means you actually have to stay in during playtime as well. Because that's what it looks like. Because look, teacher's coming back in to check on her down here. Teacher's coming back in to check on her. She's all by herself.
You can't sit with us.
No Marmite and chips for her. All right, let's go.
But not for Darleen Tana.
Not at all. My pronouns are they, them. I never walk alone, in fact.
Back in the House 130 days after being exiled by the Greens and finally revealing their intention.
Are you intending to stay on as a Member of Parliament?
I came into Parliament to do some mahi, so I'm here to do that.
The repeated pleas from the Greens for a resignation continue.
And we've made it really clear that the behaviour and the action of Darleen Tana is not befitting not only of a member of the Green Party caucus, but of a Member of Parliament.
And continue to be ignored.
So I'm pleased to be back and I'm determined to continue serving the people.
Chloe Swarbrick tried to get in touch again this morning.
I requested that she finally, as a matter of basic decency and respect, respond to our request unanimously from our caucus for her to resign.
Tana was welcomed back to the House with a hongi from Te Pāti Māori co-leader Debbie Ngarewa Peka.
Have you had any conversations with Darleen Tana about joining Te Pāti Māori?
No. We saw her today for the first time in Mihi.
It is interesting. I haven't seen the end of this clip, so I don't know if they're going to say it. But on TVNZ, Debbie Ngarewa Peka said, "We never leave Māori behind." So it was an interesting way to word it. She may come and say it right now, but that was what she said on TVNZ talking about Darleen Tana.
The Greens have the option to kick Tana out of here using the waka jumping legislation they fiercely oppose.
I've always said that nothing is off the table here, but the best case scenario for everyone involved in this situation is for Darleen to take accountability and responsibility and to resign.
I'm here now and doing the mahi for as long as this place will allow me.
That's at least one outstanding question answered, but on the substance of the matter, allegations Tana was involved in migrant exploitation at their husband's bike business, it was back to evasive form.
Can you categorically say you had no involvement in migrant exploitation at your husband's business?
What I can categorically say is that we've spent so much money wasting taxpayers' hard-earned money.
If the answer's not, I can categorically say I did not, then there is issues. It needs to be, the answer needed to be, I can categorically say I was not involved. And if it's anything else, then it's just more trouble.
We've spent so much money wasting taxpayers' hard-earned money to find out that I am married to my husband, for better or for worse. Thank you very much. I need to get back into the House.
Darleen Tana categorically not answering the question.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Point well made, categorically not answering the question. So, yeah, any other question is any other, and one wonders why you wouldn't, even if you'd done something, if you wouldn't just bullshit there and then. I mean, is it I don't know this, right? So I'm just asking questions, Joe. Just asking questions. Is this exploitation a potential criminal situation? Is there something within employment law that they can be held accountable? And I said this last week, not to sound like a bit of an old pirate, but if your partner had just gone bankrupt in their business, who the hell is going to be leaving a $180,000 job? Yeah. If your husband's company's just gone bankrupt, or yours and your husband's, you're not going to, no matter what, you're not walking away from that paycheck. We said this last week. This seems very, very expected, shall we say.
Oh, so much I want to say to this. Look, I know there's a lot of people saying that the Greens should compromise. Compromise their position on the waka jumping just to get rid of her. I disagree.
Doesn't matter.
I disagree. I don't think they should. I think she is a self-solving problem. She is political nuclear waste.
Yep.
She's going to get nothing done. And look, that's just a price of doing business. She's not going to go on her own.
No, and look, if this was a government with a one-seat majority and the Greens were involved with it, yeah, sure, do it then, because there's an extraordinary circumstance for you to go against your normal position. This is not that situation. This is not that situation. You getting rid of her or not is not going to change anything within the House. Obviously, there's an ethics and a morality situation here, and she was elected because she was part of the Greens. She's no longer part of the Greens, so she should piss off. But it's actually not going to make any difference at all to how the government runs or rules. So I would rather save face and keep to my morals, being the Greens, than waste it on this one when, next time you might need to use it for reals.
Look, she doesn't have an electorate seat. She's a Green Party, was a Green Party list MP. So that comment of her that she was elected to do the mahi and that's what she's going to do is a load of bullshit. She's got no mahi to do. She's just going to sit in their house. She's going to eat a packed lunch. She's going to go home and she's going to take the public paycheck because that's what she's decided to do. I don't think this is a reflection of the Greens personally.
No, I agree.
I don't begrudge them doing a full accounting and that it took some time. I don't think anybody can really criticize them, although they'll try. I also want to draw attention to this whole my pronouns are they, them. She has never said that before.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it seems to my ears at least, and I'm happy to be corrected if she has used those pronouns before, is that it was more of an avenue to get to that part where she said, I never walk alone. So it wasn't a question of a gender identity or anything like that, but she cheapened the use of pronouns by using it to get to that line, in my sense.
Mm.
And I did see a comment about Debbie greeting her, and I agree with this. That's a Māori thing to do. Go mihi to another Māori, especially if they're out on their own, it's just good tikanga. That's exactly how I saw it. I don't think the Māori Party would want a bar of her in their party. I don't think it would gain them anything.
Interestingly enough, right, and this is just I'm looking up some websites as you're talking. They, them, again, each to their own if you want to do it. Doesn't seem to be very prevalent in any of her stuff written about her. She, everywhere. Of course, it's Wikipedia. It can be changed, but more often than not, it's pretty right. I was just looking through some of her government ones. There's nothing in there one way or the other, but I mean, I couldn't give a rat's ass what people called themselves. Go for it. I'll do it. But sometimes it becomes confusing. Like when they were mentioning they and that, even though I understand it, in my head I still kind of go, is there more? Oh, there's not more than one person. I got it. I'm with you. Okay, I got it. It's just a double step together. But yeah, that's interesting, Trini. That maybe, I mean, it could also be a way to evoke a support from a sector of the community that currently is not giving it to her. Them. So it could be that as well.
Yeah.
Either way, though, it's a distraction.
I did read that Stuff tried to clarify that so they could make sure that she's referred to by correct pronouns, and her reply was just to repeat it, that she doesn't walk alone.
Right.
So yeah, just very, very strange.
Right. I'm just going to look at one more thing. Okay. Well, okay. So this is interesting. So that's why we lead the world in this kind of breakthrough. So here's the Green Party relationship, Green Party release. Multiple serious allegations she was facing. She resigns. So yeah, it seems like, because I mean, as much as the Green Party want to be very distant from Darleen Tana, their kaupapa would be to use her correct pronouns. And so this would say to me that up until last week, the Green Party didn't know that that was her pronouns. Now she can change them if that's what she's all about, but it doesn't seem to be anything to do with the Green Party. So yeah, is it an awakening to her new character or personality, or is it a rod to help her get sympathy from a sector of society that she'd like to get support from?
Or is it a smoke grenade thrown to confuse and distract?
Because you can then also be offended. Excuse me, I'm not XYZ. Off I walk in a huff. Could be a defense mechanism as well. Or it could be for real. Or it could be for real. And there could have been an awakening and whatever. But it does seem fishy. Chewy, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
A few super chats came in there. We should probably mention them. Please buy Nala retreat on my behalf for being a cute distraction. Okay. She gets lots of treats.
I've heard some concerning rumours, and I won't divulge my sources, but I hear that you may be stingy with the snacks. Is this correct? How would you like to answer that accusation?
My dog, and she's my dog, gets looked after exactly the appropriate level of looked after when it comes to calorie intake. She gets everything she needs.
You heard it here first. Stingy with the treats.
We got her doing some more tricks yesterday, actually. My kids teach her new tricks every time they come over. It takes her about 5 minutes to learn one. She's working on rollover. And so for the last few days, she's been getting a few extra bits here and there to do rollover. And I want to teach her to lie down when you go, Ado, that's one I want to teach her because I think that'd be funny for a dog. Although, if she's kind of got an orange comb over, so maybe that wouldn't be appropriate in this current climate.
My dog
from R. Dean.
Sorry.
Next election, Labor leader needs to give 2 running totals in debates of unanswered questions. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, etc. every time he don't answer. Yeah, that's interesting. That would be quite good, actually. Sorry, Chewy, I interrupted you with a story about your dog. Sacrilege.
Here's my promise. If we ever get to the position of running a debate with political candidates, my job in that debate will be to man the air horn. Yeah. What I was saying about my dog and the treats. My dog, my wife is not stingy with the treats. I am the one that's stingy with the treats. My fat little dog, whenever we want her to do a trick, she frantically tries to do all the tricks that we've taught her before. So tries to sit, lie down, roll over, and give a handshake all at the same time. It is very confusing. But she gets a trick. Yeah. That's the one. More aggressive, like a train horn.
All right. That was fun tonight. Thank you for Ayesha Verrall for coming. And that was all very much last minute, actually. I emailed them at 8 minutes past 4, Chewy. I was kind of like, what should we do tonight? Hey, we should try and get someone. 8 past 4, by 10 past 5, it was all set up. So there you go.
We got
so thank
12, 14 layers of bureaucracy.
Dude, I got through 103 layers of bureaucracy and got someone, a former minister of the Crown, within 55 minutes. So there you go. I hear good things about the Working Group podcast tonight. Hope you all watched it. And if you didn't, we might watch a little bit tomorrow night. I'll have to go and have a look and see what it was all about. And of course, I do think as well, Chewy, that I'm sure this will go over the next couple of nights, that the Treaties Principle Bill is having its first reading or first presentation or whatever the correct word is this week, I think. So maybe we'll have to try and get a couple of people on to talk about that, see where we're at and what we're going to do about that.
In regards to the submissions that I mentioned last night, tonight is the last night to make a submission of the 3 strikes bill. So if you haven't done that already, there's your homework. And I also noticed that Seymour is still throwing changes into his charter school bill, which you still have, I think, 2 days to make submissions. So he's still making changes to it. So you got 2 submissions to do this week. 1 tonight, 1 tomorrow. Very, very easy.
And just to wrap this whole thing up, Green Party website, our Meet the Candidate forum, Darleen Tana is referred to as her. You know what? I actually think that's kind of shitty for someone to pull like a extra sympathy card or whatever. Or if what you're saying, Chewy, is she's just come up with a good way to talk about not walking alone. But there's meet our candidate, Darleen Tana Hoff-Nielsen, who will share her motivations to stand for the Greens and her plans for a unique election campaign. I guess to be fair again, hang on, just one more thing. To be fair again, she has every right to change them, but it does seem convenient.
It's you know what it reminds me of? Okay, so I've got friends that use those pronouns and like it's a whole thing, and I respect them for doing it. It's basic levels of respect to try and recognize that, right? But what she's doing there, and this is what makes me angry about it, is it's cheapening the whole thing. It's using it as a political distraction. It reminds me when, what's that actor's name? House of Cards.
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. Remember when he came out with that weird statement that he was like, oh, it might have happened. I don't know. By the way, I'm gay. And he came out in that moment. And it was like, okay, cool. Maybe, okay, that's cool news, Kevin. But maybe don't just throw it into your kind of admission that you might have done it. It's weird. Like, they can be 2 separate things, and they should be 2 separate things. So yeah, it reeks of someone doing a distraction and a confuse.
Look, the reality for me is language. It's evolving, it's devolving, it's moving. For me, if it makes it easier or harder to understand the context, that's when I put it up. So as an example of the they, them, I remember watching an article last year about the top twins, and they are in the LGBT community, and they talked about them having cancer, breast cancer. I still don't know to this day whether that was one of them saying them as a pronoun or both of them because it's a plural. So in that instance, it doesn't help the communication. You're entitled to do whatever you want to do. For me, it's always about, can I understand what this conversation is? Now, I still don't know whether that was one of the top twins using a plural or both of the top twins. So it actually made the communication more difficult. Well, someone's telling me in the chat it was both. Okay, so it was both. There we go. So now I know. But in that instance, with this conversation going on around it, it made communication a slightly more difficult, which is not really a big deal. But I just like to be, I think communication as easily receivable and accurate as we can is what I'm kind of normally about. But you be you, boo. Yeah. You be you. Chewy, I think isn't your pronouns Wookiee or something like that? Is that right? No? What's a female Wookiee?
It's still
Wookiee?
a Wookiee, Pat.
A Wookiee. Something? I don't know.
Oh, dear.
Great fun tonight, Whānau. Great fun.
Pick up the news. Big Harry style, keeping it loose. New Zealand, where the politics play, they bring the truth every single day. Talking about the mess all over the land. They shine a light with a mic in their hand.
Someone says Wookshee. That's not bad. Wookshee. Wookiee and Wookshee.
Back straight up. Bad and true. Never backing up. From the Cape to Bluff, no place too far. They expose the truth and raise the bar. Politicians tremble at their mighty voice. Pat and Chewy, they'll make the right choice.
All right, team, thanks for joining us tonight. Remember, if you want to be a part of what we do behind the scenes, like all these people here, these lovely people, you can become a patron by heading to patreon.com/Big Hero News. I see someone called Graham signed up in the last couple of hours. Welcome to the Whānau, Graham. Also, we're giving away $500 to someone to redesign our theme tune, the one you're hearing right now. Head to our Facebook page, head to my Twitter feed if you want to find out more details about it. That's it for me, Joey.
And that's it for me as well.
All right, team. Have a good one. We'll catch you tomorrow night. Live again from 9 p.m. It's Big Hero News. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.